Try one more time to call the meeting to order. And Gabby, I'm gonna make the assumption we've got a quorum because the folks I'm seeing counting in my head.
Let me do a roll call real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably best.
Courtney to Williger.
I'm here.
Marty Robinson. Chad. Yeah, they can hear us.
Here.
They're over there. Chad Black.
Here.
Pete Quinones.
He is not going to make it.
No. Sam Polk.
I'm here.
Lee Oliver.
Here.
Blake Thompson. Oh. Dwayne Montgomery. He's on here. David Edwards. He's on there. Vic Drawdy. I think he's on there.
Yes, I'm online, guys. Thanks.
Huey Atkins.
Here.
Jim Atkins.
I think I saw him walk in. So
Almost here. And James Smith.
Oh, Jay, he's not, he can't be
He's not
here.
coming?
Yeah. Dr. Medeiros is
Playing the role of Jay Smith today.
So we do have a quorum.
So y'all have been sent electronically a copy of the minutes for January 6th and the April 6th meeting. If my memory is right, the January 6th meeting was our regularly scheduled meeting. April 6th meeting was our call meeting to approve the budget for the AY money and the reconciliation. That was everything on that agenda. So
Courtney, I read over both of those sets of minutes and I would make a motion to accept as is.
okay, you probably can't hear him, but he said he was making a motion. That was Vic.
Vic, so you making a motion to approve the January 6th minutes?
Yes, sir. I read over both of them and they both look really good. They're very, I'd like to add that they are very detailed and they're really good.
That's what I was trying. I was hitting the plus, but it's going down.
There you go.
I've always wanted silent Vic, so.
I think I'm at max volume.
We may get blown out.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Jim, Tom, how are y'all? Good. So I've got a motion. Do I have a second to approve? And Vic made the motion for both sets of minutes. I have a motion and second. I need a second. Anybody?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving both sets of minutes for the January 6th and the April 6th meeting? Let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, same sign. Thank you. So minutes are the Georgia Trauma Commission update is.
The major updates right now are the budget. The commission will approve next week, hopefully. We're having a called meeting to approve the FY23 budget, which was not approved by the legislators until sine die, as they call it here in Georgia, the last legislative day, which is unusual for it to go that long, but it did kind of affect our process. So we're having a called meeting to approve that. And the most notable thing about it is that we are allocated the full super speeder funds this year, the 21 million. So that'll bump up the EMS allotment quite a bit. So
What changes? How much was it before?
we would typically get a base budget of between 14 and 16. And then Dr. Ashley and I would have to do what I lovingly refer to as the Paisley Pumps and Pearls tour. He would put on his best Paisley tie and I would put on the pumps and pearls, and we would go talk about what we did last summer and beg for more money. And the last 2 years, we were successful in getting the full allocation through amended funds, but now we'll get it up front. So I would say that changes quite a bit about the way we can manage our money, and that we can, you know, potentially, you guys remember a while ago, these improvement grants sort of stop that. And now we need to start with the process whereby we just allocate a certain amount, not necessarily an amount per region, but just an amount that would be available for grant applications, so that you know, just thinking in the past of some of the things the commission has been able to do with that money. For example, I believe Athens put in like a helipad, like that was a huge investment, right? That was a lot of money, more than what would have been a regional improvement grant allotment, but it sure as heck served that community well, because then patients did not have to be busted. So just thinking about sort of things like that and the way we may be able to do grants in the future, that will really change that. So commission will approve that as a called meeting next week, and then we will have our regularly scheduled meeting in May. Really proud to say that we finally finished up that level 3, level 4 readiness cost survey that I've been talking about for a year now. We finally have good data on what it costs to be a level 3 or a level 4 center, which is really important because particularly for those of you from the rural areas, we are only likely going to be able to stand up level 3 and level 4 centers. If you're not already a 1, you're not going to be a 1. With rare exceptions, it does happen, but level 2 is the same thing. You really have to have the full complement of subspecialists to be a level 2. So it's not likely that we're going to financially entice somebody to stand up as a level 2, but hopefully we can maybe look at those costs relative to what would be a good startup grant process to bring more 3s and potentially 4s. You look like you were going to say something. Yes, no.
I was just gonna say Northeast Georgia, I know is looking at a 1. That does
A 1,
not
yes.
include them. They're already in that process.
Correct. Yes, correct.
And Liz, let me introduce Jeff Adams.
Oh, please.
Jeff was named as my position where I retired at Habersham day before yesterday, and he's going to be the one that will appoint to this committee from Region 2.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You got some big shoes.
No.
Just make sure when you leave, you're here for your cake, okay? We're gonna mail that to you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Okay, and so besides that, so we're gonna, lots more to come on that as we sort of figure out how we bolster up the rural area. On that same line, the American College of Surgeons did approve us to have a pilot rural focused trauma system consult visit. And we hope that that will happen in the fall. So we have a meeting with them either this Friday or next Friday to talk about what the framework looks like, what kind of questions we want answered. We've already given them sort of a little bit of a laundry list of things that we wanted addressed, but they want to have some more dialogue with us and figure out what the team composition that comes to do that consult will look like. We are moving forward with you've also heard us talk a lot about our risk-adjusted benchmarking, our Georgia Quality Improvement Program, which is also known as TQIP, the Trauma Quality Improvement Program Collaborative, which is all of our trauma centers collecting data and submitting to risk-adjusted benchmarking. And we've contracted to get our own statewide risk-adjusted benchmarking that will actually reach down to the level 4 centers. We have not previously had a sight line into what's happening at level 4 centers. This will help us figure out what does resuscitation look like? Is it successful? If not, why? What are the things that we can potentially fix? This has been such a slow process because we've had to get through all the security assessments. Now we have lawyers involved. So need I say more? We're developing peer review policies, and we're also going to try to, while we're getting it started up, we're gonna, at the outset, apply to have it be a certified patient safety organization as part of the American, do you remember the name of that?
AHRQ.
I know the initials, but I could not remember the American Healthcare Quality, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to have the gold standard right from the start. I think that's it. We talked time to definitive care last time, I believe. We told you that for 1 quarter's worth of data, we were able to tell pretty definitively with about 75% of the data set what that time from ditch to door to that first facility was. However, if you don't land where you need to go initially and you have to get transferred to higher level of care, we only have about 16% of that data set. So we're working to try to figure out ways to beef up that data set and get it a little bit more applicable, because once you start getting into those cases, it's taking 5, 6, 7 hours to get to definitive care. And we have no idea. Kelly sits on that group that we're teasing away at that. And we have no idea what some of those barriers are. So the more data we can get on that, the more we'll be able to say for sure that, we're doing a good job, or figure out where, where we can potentially intervene. I think that's it.
So the college, when they're coming down to look at the rural centers or the rural situation, are they coming down to look at the rural centers or the rural trauma concerns globally?
Globally. So you remember, we want to do the full ACS trauma system consult, replicate that similar to what was done when the commission started back in 07, 08. But we need that NHTSA EMS system evaluation before they'll come do that. That way the college doesn't have to focus a lot of their time on the EMS system. They can take those recommendations from that EMS system consult and spend their time on other places. But since we're far off from that, this was kind of that intermediary thing, because especially considering that when they come to the state, the tendency is to focus on the urban areas. They have a lot of meetings in the urban areas. This way, they'll only have their stakeholder meetings in the rural areas, and they'll look at EMS hospitals, emergency management, soup to nuts, pretty much.
And when we have that scheduled?
I'm hoping when we have our next call with them, we will. We were shooting for fall of this year. I hope that's still possible, but I don't know. And remember, we also have the Pennsylvania Trauma System Foundation coming down to do all of the level 4 consultative visits the week of October 10th or 12th it is. So we don't want to have it be around that time frame, because the level 4s, who are largely going to be involved in the rural focused consult visit, will be involved in preparing for their visits. So we want to make sure we're mindful of that.
Any questions? Comments?
I got a question, just, and you may not know at this point, Liz, but the 10 hours roughly that you were speaking about for transfer.
For when they go to another facility
Right,
first, yeah.
Right. So Courtney, I think, is a great example, because this hospital is what? A lot of things. A lot of things.
Quantify that
Yeah,
example.
well,
would you
I'll try to
please?
do it this way, in a positive way. He's got 3 level 1s, almost equal distance, 3 different directions, basically. So when y'all are looking at that data, and I guess, Regina, when y'all are looking at just all the global CQI data you're looking at, the hospitals already know the referral patterns. They know who the doctors speak to the most frequently, whether it be Augusta, Savannah, Macon, whatever it is. So they most likely follow those patterns. But are y'all able, through the CQI data that y'all are reviewing, do y'all see those referral patterns to me? Do they stand out that people, Manual usually goes to X and Cordell usually goes to Y? Do y'all see that emerge basically from the data?
We're not getting to that level yet.
Okay.
I mean, we're still doing just some case by case, like essentially pulling until the database migration, because
Right.
we can't pull anything with the registry data until that's sorted. But what we were doing was pulling like major outliers and kind of reviewing to see, well, like what happened here? Because in one case, patient landed somewhere, was en route to the closest level 1 and had stopped somewhere else because it had an issue. And so like that patient ended up 2 different places. So we're not looking.
Unintended, but that's what
Correct,
really
yeah.
helped you, right?
We're not looking yet at anything that
Okay.
granular. Right now, we're just kind of looking at the times. And then
Gotcha.
once we have more of what I would say is not like a type 1 statistical error, where it's basically sample bias. If you only have 16%, you can't
Right.
say that that's the case for everybody. 75%, that's a much better. You can really say that's probably more applicable to the broader population. Once we have that, then we can create like reference ranges and say, okay, it seems to be that the central tendency is this. It takes 4 to 6 hours to get to definitive care. Now we got to look, because Brian and I were just looking at like the southwest corner of Region 8. Well, if you're in Region 8, I would venture to say in the southwest corner of Region 8, unless you go somewhere else that we probably can't track you, if you come to a Georgia trauma,
Right.
definitive care trauma center, you're probably going to be an extended time because you're just not close to
Now you're
anyone
not.
else.
Most years goes to Florida, don't they?
Cross, yeah.
Well, myself, I'm at 7.
He's 7. Yeah.
Right.
So even an hour further from him. So there'll be things that even if you're driving the fastest you can, you're gonna just distance wise, that's gonna create issues. So we're not able to even sort all that out yet, which is frustrating.
Is there any differential, and you may not know, is there any differential between the time interval if they're arrive at a level 3 or 4
Mhm.
and they're being transferred to a 2 or a 1?
Yeah, that's a
Then
really,
if they're undesignated?
that's a really great question. We don't know that only because we're only dealing right now with registry data, which by
Okay.
definition, you have to be at a
Designated
designated
hospital,
center.
yeah.
But if we can, and Courtney will give you an update on the March Pulse program a little bit later. But one of the things that we were thinking about doing, particularly considering we have a little bit more money now, like a little bit more guaranteed, if you will, is to get the non-designated centers to either engage to potentially come in at, like, let's say a level 4, or let's say they want to be a non-designated but participating center. Maybe we can offer them some equipment grants. We identified that there's some equipment that these folks probably need to be successful in resuscitating trauma patients. We can say, well, we'll give you an equipment grant and then maybe some additional grant to collect data for a year, because it would be really interesting to see if there a difference between if you go to the non-designated center or you arrive at the center that's a level 4 where theoretically you should be plugged into the system, so you
Right.
should be able to get out. Now, during COVID times, all that was really thrown out the window, because even if you had a normal referral pattern, we had patients getting
It was
transferred to
disrupted
Florida,
anyway, yeah.
Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina. We had a patient go to Pennsylvania.
Thanks.
And we will delve into a little bit more of this when we get down to the equipment grant and the March polls. I'll try to speak up. I know I don't speak very loudly, but there's some things that have vexed me seriously in the last few days that are about this sort of thing. So more to come. AVLS update, Tim.
Okay,
Sharing, yeah.
so you've all got copies of this by PDF and PowerPoint. And I've included some new information this time in more detail, which you'll see it looks like you could never read it, but if you use your Zoom on your computer, you can blow it up and read the spreadsheets as it is. So we're looking at last quarter in this report. Go ahead to the next slide. And I've listed on here the support deliverables, the kinds of things that we've been doing, or I've been doing with the various agencies here in terms of deliverables. Nothing earth shattering here. It's mostly, some troubleshooting and getting equipment and helping to coordinate with for SIMs and connectivity and that sort of thing. So go ahead to the next one. And this is just some more continuation of that. You can look at these at your leisure. And this is an overview of where we stand statewide in terms of coverage and by region, and the percentage of trucks that are have active AVLS versus the total number, and what in there. And that's for a variety of reasons. Trucks are not online because of maintenance. The truck's been wrecked. Somebody hasn't gotten the new units installed yet. Any number of reasons, but that's what it looks like. And we monitor that and use that information. And now coordinating that with the RTACs to help improve the communication level with the agencies there. And it's not a simple thing. We have, Brian and I are dealing with one of the counties where they have somebody who took over not too long ago, and they've got all this equipment and they're trying to get everything in an agency on track and doing what they're supposed to do. And this is a paramedic who I think is now an EMS director.
Right.
And he's not an IT guy, and he doesn't have an IT guy. So it takes a while to help these folks and get these things online and do what needs to happen there. So there's a lot of complications that go on to make those numbers be what they are. in that. There's also a quick reference guide that we use for folks that are new out there. It's sent out to them that gives them some information about some of the tricks that we've learned along the way, and links to some training and that sort of thing. And that was last updated last June. Still good, but we'll probably update it again this summer.
Could we put that on the Trauma Commission website so somebody could go to that easily?
Yeah, sure.
So Tim, I know several of us reached out, I think after the last meeting in some of the
Yep.
areas that had lower activity, I guess. Did you see it
Yes,
change?
yes, there've been some changes,
Okay.
and the RTACs have helped it with that as well. And so I think it is. If you go to the next slide. So there's the spreadsheet I was talking about.
That's helpful.
And if you hit Zoom, when you got it in front of you, you can actually read it. But what I've done there is that at the top is a summary, which is from the previous page that just shows overall. And then I've gone by region, and then down within each region, it is each agency. And so you can actually see them by agency in there very, very quickly. What's there? That information comes right off the AMM, but all of you don't have access to all the whole AMM. You can see your own regions, but not others. So that may be of interest to you to take a quick look through when you've got your bifocals or binoculars, whichever the case may be.
Is there any region you need help with?
I think it's more on a case-by-case basis individually. And so now having the contacts with the RTACs, that makes it much easier for me to go get some help if I need help directly. Sometimes people change. I don't get the information that there's been a personnel change, and I'm still calling somebody who left, 6 months ago, that sort of thing. And that RTACs been really helpful at solving that problem. So that's very helpful, because I'm a little bit out of the loop in that kind of communication.
And Tim joins our monthly RTAC coordinator calls now, so we can make sure.
And I attended Region 7 this week, and so it's helpful. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here's what our current situation is in terms of paying for wireless service. At Verizon, we're down to 550 units. On Verizon, on AT&T, we're sitting still at 164 units. On FirstNet, T-Mobile has come on board, and they're up to 100 units now and growing. Southern Link also came online about 6-8 months ago, and they're up to 413 units across the state. And these have all been done, both Southern Link and T-Mobile, by doing testing in the field to see if the coverage is there and that sort of thing, to make it work for the agency. And what we've been doing at this point is allowing the agencies to make the choice of which carrier they want based on what they see as the best coverage in their area, and that they have confidence in. So we're paying for airtime for about 1,247 of a total of about 1,396 units that are out there in the field and showing up on our AMM that allows us to provide for mutual aid coordination and that sort of thing. New leader orientation videos and information been provided to Stewart County and Pierce County as new leaders that have come on board in those two areas. So that's one of the things that's happened this quarter. And here's from the FY22 money, right? We haven't purchased any gateways this year. So we just sent the last 5 FY 2021 purchased units out for delivery last month or the last couple of months to Meriwether, Ware, Coweta, South Georgia Medical Center, and Walton. So that used up the 2021 money, and now we've got a new purchase order for about $25,000 to carry us through the rest of this fiscal year till July, and I've already got requests for I think 4 new units that I'm going to be sending an order in this weekend. I didn't send the purchase order. But that's where we stand in terms of that. Now, looking forward, here's our budget. We covered this at the budget meeting. But this is just a recap of equipment requests going forward for this coming year. 150,000. Annual maintenance, 237.5. Hopefully that's going to actually come in a little lower than that. Maybe you'll adjust that. They're doing the calculations right now. We just summed up how many actual units we've got that we're going to be paying for. And it's a little less than it was, about 50 less than it was last year. But at the same time, the prices, Sierra Wireless prices went up this year for the first time in 10 years. So that balances out a little bit. And then you can see the airtime amounts on a monthly basis that we're currently paying to the different agencies and what that total comes out for, and for what we're projecting the total number of units to be for the next fiscal year, and the grand total of the AVLS system cost at the bottom. Okay, I think that's it.
Questions of Tim?
When you're looking at devices that are active, can you tell if they're moving or not?
Yes.
Determine if they're active. And the reason I ask that is, as you know, acquired some devices, and about half of them were sitting on the shelf as spares, and they were active and being paid monthly fees on. And of course, I had Tim deactivate those. So not only are they powered up, but can we actually see that they're moving and being utilized instead of?
We can, and I have also in the last 6 months adopted a much more cutthroat approach of looking every month. I get a report now from the carriers about how many are inactive. Right now, that's only Verizon. That's really the issue. That any of them have been active for 60 days. I've been inactive for 60 days. I just suspend them for 90 days. And if they're still not done within the 90 days, they get deactivated. And then, and I get 1 or 2 calls a month saying, hey, I got a problem with this machine. It's been sitting on the shelf and we just put it back in the truck and it's not firing. And great. And I get on the line and I can turn it back on for them. So, we're dealing with that, cutting that problem down a lot.
But you're calling them before you deactivate. I know Habersham, before I left, we had an ambulance in a wreck, and because of the supply chain, that thing was out 5 months before they could repair it, getting parts. So I mean, there was nothing you could do for that.
Exactly. And so I suspend it. And if they call me and say, hey, we're ready to bring this back in front, fine, I can turn.
I think that's something we need to get the director, let them know if you're gonna have a truck out of service, instead of taking off, suspend that, not pay on it.
Yeah. And it'd be great if they could call me and let me know that. At the same time, there's 140 of them out there. That
Right.
I'm not counting on that.
Need to get out, that if that happens, let them know to
I
contact.
had 4 that were deemed spares, not even in a truck. Sitting
Sit on the
how they
shelf, being
got
paid. I know we've had that problem.
And that happens. Then the other piece, and I'll shut up, is with regard to the research you're doing. The data we're collecting on the AMM shows from the point the truck leaves your wherever they're posted till they arrive at the scene. Their time and speed and everything is tracked in there, and all that data is there. From the time they leave the scene and go to wherever the point of care is, it's also tracked in there. From the time, and then if they pick up somebody at that point of care, they go to a definitive point of care, that's also tracked in there. And if there's the only thing we have to do is correlate the information, the ID of the truck. If it's on I don't know what's on your PCR. So if it's on the PCR, and we can identify the truck in the database on the AVLS system. So we could maybe expand or deepen the level of data that you're able to look at. To do that, it would cost some money. It means we have to download the data from Sierra Wireless once a month or whatever, and have some repository place to host it. And then whoever does the research would have to dig through it and pull that data from it. But I don't think it would be rocket science. And I also think that Sierra Wireless has a vested interest in being very helpful in making that happen, because it's a model for them for added value across their other clients eventually as well. So anyway, something to think about. In terms of that.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about that. I think one of the biggest troubles is we can't right now drill down on who's the actual trauma patient, because this is everybody, right? This is like all comers. But what we can do is once GEMSIS becomes NEMSIS, that opens that's a whole different, that's gonna be a game changer. That will really help.
So I just think that across the country, these other vendors who are selling those systems and things, they don't think about this because we're the only state that has the kind of ADLS network and communication across the whole state. And so they probably aren't thinking about this opportunity for collecting data.
So you said when GEMSIS become, I thought we were NEMSIS. Is that just a different version?
I don't know. I
It's
wasn't
the
sure.
next- Whatever the next version is.
3.5, is that what you're talking about, version 3.5?
I can't remember the different versions.
Well, there is GEMSIS and NEMSIS. GEMSIS is the Georgia,
Mhm.
and then Georgia sends the national data set up to NEMSIS, which is the national data set, but we are converting to version 3.5.
So within the next 2 years or something.
Yes.
That's it. It's
Okay.
3.5 version.
It's good. So are you saying it in that conversion and what's going on in that conversion is going to help you pull
Yes.
data better?
Correct.
Because the elements will be clearer, focused on what you're looking for.
It's actually gonna have that patient identifier that will
We're doing that.
communicate, that will have the ability to communicate with the trauma registry. That's the
Okay.
UUID, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if we could take UUID and then somehow, we could almost, I would think, even get the real-time tracking information. I don't know.
So what's the new trick that's gonna allow it to be easier to track?
There'll be a,
The national, the UUID is a national identifier, so it's the new be all end all that will link all the data together. So it'll interconnect between one data set to the other data set because it'll be used across multiple
Platforms.
platforms and it will link the data together. And some states are already using it. TQIP uses it. We don't have it, so we can't, it's a null field for us. But what TQIP's doing at the national level is pulling all of the EMS data from the the NEMSIS right into the TQIP data set, linking the UUIDs. We're just a little behind with that.
So how are they linking patients?
I don't know how it's it gets generated, so it's all linked together. It's in the registry, it's on your PCRs, I guess. And it'll go into the,
In version
GEMSIS.
3.5.
and then the GEMSIS, it'll link in NEMSIS, so, but they'll use it in
I know,
multiple.
but I guess are they putting
It's the
the trauma
universal-
registry number tied in with the PCR?
No, it's an independent universal identifier.
So is it assigning it based on assessment from the medic?
I don't know, because we don't have it.
It's another form we get to fill out.
you gotta.
Only you.
No, I don't know if it's auto, I
It's
don't
like
think
government healthcare, you gotta pass it to know what it
Yeah,
is.
that's right. It's a surprise till we get it, but then it's man.
Well, and I don't know if it's auto-generated or manual. I hope it's
It-
auto-generated.
Yeah, it'll have to be auto
Because
generated.
manual is fraught with error. Yeah. So it's probably some auto-generated numbers.
Killing Chad, we're already testing. Our crews not even have to go en route or on scene anymore. I mean, we use buttons now, but moving forward, they won't have to touch nothing, say nothing, anything. It's all based on vehicle movement.
We're doing that too. It's got some neat opportunities and some challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you're in an urban area and things are real close to it.
Because what makes that number of ditch to door one and then door one to door two so convoluted right now is when we identify the patient at door one, their registry number, then Marie has to go into the registry of door two and find that patient in door two's registry. oftentimes there is no matching records found between the two facilities, and that's what further limits the data set. Or we can't identify who that patient is.
Or you've got EMS trying to, or a hospital trying to match it up in hospital hub. And what I understand, they've got to have multiple identifiers, and Lee Oliver's pretty easy to spell, but some of the names we get are not.
They'll just
Or if
use,
you're unnamed, that's.
That-
part of
that's
it,
right,
Yeah.
they'll just use a chip we got with the vaccine.
That explains it all.
Moving
There we
along,
go.
Courtney, let's be able to scan you and identify you.
Courtney,
Yes,
Courtney, this is Sam. One of the things that Dr. Boone had mentioned with the AVLS system and that we have played with some here, you are able to create zones if you haven't done this, or you services, especially those outside of the downtown area, when you're transporting larger numbers of patients outside of your county, you are able to create zones. So we can create a zone and show how long our trucks are outside of the county, and then create a zone around Grady. How long are our trucks? How often and how long are our trucks at Grady or Atlanta Medical? And that tells you a lot of information about how much about your need in your system, which would be really important, especially for smaller systems where they're having to transport the majority of their patients out of their county whenever they're justifying increasing their increase in need for units, personnel, so forth.
Sam, that would be a great idea to push down into some of the smaller systems. I may ask some of our folks to give you a call. That would be great for us to actively know when our trucks are in and out of the county.
We could get we could work together with you, Sam, and also with Sierra Wireless, some of the people who have done a lot of that sort of work around the country with those features in the AMN, and actually come up with a simple guide that we could provide to all the agencies about how to do that. At least that would tell them, hey, you can do this, and hey, here's how you can do it. And if you're stuck, raise your hand and we'll help. So we could do that. And I think that might be really helpful in terms of the direction you're trying to go.
And looking at a state level, such as Region 4, we are still, as of right now, the only region without a designated trauma center, even though that's gradually occurring. But when you look at large geographical areas of the state that don't have trauma services, how much are those how many times are patients having to be transported out of that region? So it has broad as well as local capabilities.
Any other questions or comments? Jim's update, Kim Littleton is in court today. She's on jury duty. So y'all pray for Kim too. For the first time, I told her have a big time. Enjoy it. Kathy, you gonna do a presentation or?
I can. Hey, folks, I see some faces I don't recognize. I'm Kathy White. I'm Jim's the program coordinator. You're the only person I'll put my back to is court. Hello. I sent in a quick heat map report of our education that we are doling out. We are wide open. As you can see right now, as of April the 9th, we're over 50,000 contact hours. Our trauma skills lab, you can see we're touching every place. There are some regions that are coming up that we haven't hit, which is Region 8, Region 9, and Region 10. Those are the last 3 in this fiscal year that we've got to get. We'll cover a lot of that southern part of Georgia when we hit those labs. The next 2 labs coming up in May. I'm scrolling to the next ones. Who's ever doing that? This was the virtual conference that y'all helped fund. This was included in the 50,000 hours that we've touched, and you can see how many people we actually reached as far as education there. Next one, please. This is the auto extrication. We have, Keith, how many classes planned between now and June? Four or five classes. Southern part, we're gonna hit region 10. We're headed over to region 4, I believe. Region 7, Brian has reached out. We're already getting requests for next year's money. Brian's reached out, a few more of the other regions. I think Courtney's region has reached out wanting some help. So we are definitely, this is a positive thing that we're doing. This is extrication with patient care focus. We're putting dummies with impaled objects, truly patient care in the car while they're being extricated. Any of our classes, we would love for y'all to come out and watch us, see what's going on. I know Courtney's come out to one of them, and we're appreciative of that. Next slide, please.
It was way too hot for me to do any work that day.
It was warm. We figured out turnout here in June was a good thing. Yay. This next class is our ENT courses that we're putting on. You can see how far we're reaching with getting our EMR ENT classes out there. Still going strong. I've got some NE rosters coming in right now. Still probably have 10 classes ongoing that are going to end by May 30th.
So just put you on the spot.
Mhm.
What percentage are EMR versus EMT?
I'll have to get back with you.
Okay. Just a wild guess.
Probably half and half. So,
I think
And-
it is, if I look back at your invoice, I can probably see that, right? Because you have it per class.
probably.
I'll look back.
Next slide, please. This one is Farm Medic. You can tell we're reaching all parts of the state. I think, Alan, we've got a class planned in Region 10 soon, but we're doing one of those a month and we're getting fabulous response back out of that class. That's cool. Next slide,
Hey,
please.
can we back one second? Where was which color was the class? Sorry, I can't see it that far. It's a great display, so I was trying to pull it up.
Which
Which one
color?
was the EMT, EMTR?
This
class?
one right here that's showing it's red, well, brownish. Mhm.
Okay, so on that one,
Mhm.
the legend is one, minimum one, maximum one, so forth, basically. That's class, right? So
No,
one class?
that's student that are coming from that area.
Okay,
So what I did was all of this is I pulled student zip codes. If they gave me their work zip code or their home zip code. You know, on the lines, we have some issues because some of our people live in Florida, but yet they work in Georgia. So
sure.
I made sure that they put the representative of Georgia in there.
So do we know, does anybody know the total number of students that started and completed for this period? In those classes?
I do, but I don't have it
Okay.
because I was concentrating on getting these maps put together. But I can't get
Can we
that.
get
to
that
you.
in the future?
I can get that to you.
And then do we know the pass rate?
Well, all of it's been, the pass rate's a variable number
Mhm.
because they can pass the class but not pass the board.
So that was the next question.
And they can
You
take,
interrupted me.
and they can take this class without even attempting the boards if they care to. So the successful completion of the course, I think is what you're asking, but I'm not sure.
Well, so that brings up an interesting question.
I can
In
get
the-
my.
In the old days of the first responder, it made sense not to get a license,
Mhm.
but that doesn't apply anymore. So why would somebody take the class and not get a license, assuming they pass everything?
They don't want to work
Well, then why are we letting them in the class?
because there may be a firefighter who can be of great assistance to that community,
Well, still, should they get a license?
not if they don't want to.
I have a little bit of problem with that.
I don't care.
Never has bothered you before, but I just, now that there's the eligibility for a license, he's driving a fire truck. He's changed hats.
So I don't have a license to drive a fire truck yet.
The data I have are the students that start the class and the students that graduate that class. I don't have any way to tie in people who take their state license.
The instructor would be the only, or program, the coordinator for that class would be the only one that has access to, or the state can look at general pass rates, but they would be the only one that has the access to the National Registry pass rate.
So Now, this is a rabbit hole, but are we funding classes that have poor pass rates? And poor conversion to Georgia licenses? I understand Courtney doesn't care that they don't get a license, but if they, are we funding classes that start out with 20 and 2 people end up with a Georgia license? That'd be an interesting point.
We do track the pass rate for every individual course, no matter who it's funded by.
But you don't know who it's. I'm not arguing with you. You know the class, but you don't know which ones are funded necessarily
No.
for this.
No, if you told us, yeah, Wilcox County EMS, because I happen to know they do have one that's funded, and it finished last night. And so like, if you told us run the pass rate numbers for that class, then yeah, I mean, we would know that. But
Kathy should have the pass rate. I think the piece that's missing is of the people who, we can at least get pass rates to start with. What we'll have to link though is, once you know the pass rate, what percentage of those who pass become workforce? in
we do
Georgia?
that. We know that as
So
well.
that we would need to work with. the
And we
state.
look at it as a completion rate or a completion number, and then a pass number is the ones, when we say pass, that have a license.
For National Registry, and then you can take that same cohort, see how many became a
What's
license
the state average running so far?
for.
For Georgia, for classes in Georgia, you said you have a database, so you look at all the classes in Georgia,
For completion or for,
both. Pass rate, we want to know how, you basically
it
want to know
varies.
how many we're putting in the workforce.
Well, and also, are we, and I hope we're not, are we
Yeah.
continually funding a location that has unacceptable completion rates?
Yeah. Yeah, what's
That
the,
makes
what's
To be
the,
a
what's the
program, do you have
benchmark
to
for the
have
state?
completion or pass rate?
benchmark is 70%.
70, so is this 70% completion rate?
Yeah, so today, and we're gonna talk about this on Friday, today, our current retention rates, which means the number that complete the program is roughly 80%, like 79.82.
In a class, is that what you're saying, Richard?
And then of
That's
those,
an average now.
and on average of those 80% that complete the course, what percentage become licensed?
Well, license, so then you got how many of those that pass registry? So the pass rate for registry is basically around, it depends on the level. EMT, we're talking about a 75% pass rate. So if you take a cohort of 100 students with an 80% retention rate, 80 are going to be eligible to take registry. And then of those, you're going to have, 60-ish that get nationally registered. And then normally speaking, I'm not quoting actual numbers, but most of the people that take registry are doing it to go get a license. So those numbers are very high with the numbers that pass
Do you
registry.
have enough experience with EMTR yet to know those numbers?
I mean, we have the numbers, yes.
Is it similar?
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, are you quoting the national average? Or are you quoting Georgia's statistics for pass rate for the national?
Georgia's, and we'll be doing a comparison on Friday on the education call. We're in most every category, we're 2 to 3 percentage points below the national average. But again, realize that the national data set is thousands of students compared to our not so many thousands.
Richard, and how many attempts are you talking as far as the National Registry pass rate?
Well, so registry pass rates runs 1 to 6 attempts. We really look at the first 3 attempts.
Okay.
So when I said 75% was our average for EMT, that's referring to the 1 to 3 attempts. It's a little bit higher. It's like 76% when you take the cumulative 6 attempts.
Okay.
And I looked at the last invoice that we have. So this just gives you a flavor. This isn't what she's presenting, what Kathy's presenting, but just the last quarter of this year invoice, there were 10 EMR, EMT classes listed, 7 were EMR and 3 were EMT. I don't know if like 30% EMT is kind of a going average of what you do of them, but that's kind of what was on the last.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking 55-45, but we've had a lot of EMT programs.
The problem with looking at EMT, once you get EMT completion and then looking at pass rate for National Registry is, and more specifically in what you were referring to as Georgia licensure as an EMT. So my program, we take they finish EMT, they take their national registry test. but they don't get a Georgia EMT license because they go directly into advanced EMT. So that when you look, if you look at Georgia licensure, you may not get a good number because some of these people may be just going straight into an AMT program from that.
So Richard, how does Sam, I'm sorry, I may not have understood you. Do they test at National Registry level?
Yeah, you have to test out at registry.
That's what I thought. So
But you don't have to get a Georgia license.
right, but so in that model, you could identify the successful completion of the course and the passing of National Registry. It just
National
went-
Registry would be a more realistic look at your rates than trying to look at Georgia licensure for the EMT level.
Yep.
Anything else on the ENT EMR
No,
programs?
it's not for me.
Okay. All right,
That was a big rabbit hole, but
all right.
I just don't think we're to fund, I think we're to, if there's a class, and I don't know if there is any, but if we've got somebody that's way underperforming in an area and we continue to spend money on it without a remediation plan, I think there would be a remediation plan,
Well,
not just a cut off.
If you could
But-
let us know what metrics you like, they're more than, Kathy and Kim have been more than willing.
I think we gotta work
We're
with
in the
Richard.
point
and
where
them,
we
right?
need to add with our.
Right.
Well, I was gonna say,
Contract
I
line.
think he's on the right track and say, basically, you want to know return on investment.
Regina agreed with me, Courtney.
Right, well, let's not get carried away, Lee, let's not get carried away. Gabby, strike that from the minutes. I want it to be known, I did not agree. But I think you're on the right track in wanting, I think we've been having these classes for a long time, and Liz is 100% correct. Kathy and Kim are more than happy to help, and I do think we're at a point where we need to start deciding what are the data elements and metrics and points that we want, because one, it helps us when we go before to ask for additional funding. If we're able to demonstrate that in the state of Georgia, we've impacted the pre-hospital workforce, which is in crisis by this percentage, or the pass rates or something. Right now, we can't demonstrate that. We know that there's a lot of work going on, no doubt about that, but we don't have tangible numbers to demonstrate what that is. And we're probably, now that you guys have been funding this for a few years and, you guys, you got your flow going, we probably need to add that layer of what data we need to collect. Like, I think this is great. Where are these courses coming from? Where are we adding people to? Is it the right mix? Are there gaps? And then of that, what's the tangible data where we can show change over time or impact over time? So the people have to, like she said, have to come up with what
Well,
is
so
it
we
we want to measure.
got to, moving forward, our staffing was an issue before the pandemic for everybody in healthcare. Pandemic, obviously, it just crashed. And so there's really not anybody, we can't just return back to doing education like we were before, because we were already falling behind before. And, moving forward, going on what you're saying, we can weed out who the bad instructors are or whatever. I think we're gonna get to the point that we've got to start funding a minimal 2 EMT classes and 1 paramedic program for every region, is my thought.
And at
And
least with
using
data,
the
you make an
regional
informed decision.
coordinators to help line those classes up and coordinate where and when they're gonna be, but have them within the regions. That's the only way we're gonna get ahead of this. The technical schools can't keep up with it. They weren't keeping up with it before the pandemic, so we know they're not gonna be able to do it now. And I just think that that's where we're gonna be heading and having to focus on doing that if we're gonna make any improvement in the workforce.
So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm fixing to wind this up because we've got some time. For the next meeting, I don't mind going all the way into the weeds. I got a different plan for the next meeting. But this is what I want Lee to think about. I live in Manuel County and we have taught first responder courses for decades, even before funding. We've taught them at schools because I wanted school teachers, particularly when they took a bunch of kids on a bus, to have a jump bag and train. Do they need a license? If I told them they had to get a license, they'd tell me what they're telling me. We did it for industry, we've done it for churches. We did it to train people so that they would be there to save somebody's life before we could get there. And this is convoluted or changed over the years. into supporting or supplanting the EMS education system that Hewitt Fort Will take and the technical colleges used to do. And I don't think they're not keeping up. I don't know that they're trying to keep up. I think that they have their own challenges, and a lot of their challenges are financial, trying to do a class, EMT class with few students. There's a lot of issues there. So, and I don't mind keeping up who takes it, who passes, who does whatever. But I would object to us saying, well, no, any county that wants to teach a first responder class and focus on a school system or industry or church group, that we wouldn't fund it. Because the whole concept is to get people out there who can immediately or very quickly be there to stop that bleeding, to open that airway, to do those things. I realize we have a funding situation or a workforce situation. That's not, I don't know that that's a mission of the Trauma Commission to prop up the EMS education system. We need to go to the legislature as a group, and that'll be part of the other meeting, to say these are the things we need.
So Courtney, I can understand not the Georgia license. I can wrap my head around that to a point. And I think industry and church groups and all the things, schools are an important part of the response system. For them to successfully complete the class, not talking about the Georgia license in that model, are you saying they should get registry, should pass registry? Or they just take the class?
That model, I think they should take the class. Now, if they're doing an EMR, I don't see them being required to take an exam. If they did a waiver and said, we're gonna do the EMT, then that's telling me that program is trying to do EMT so they can staff their trucks. And maybe we ought to look at that.
So would we not be better served, or let me ask you this way, I know you want to try to wrap it up. The EMTR now is recognized in Georgia as a license level. It has a test from National Registry. It has a curriculum associated with hopefully passing National Registry and then obtaining a Georgia license. So if you have a group of individuals that are church-based, industry-based, school-based, whatever they are, and they complete the class, but they don't take the National Registry test, how do you assure they're competent? They were in a class. So if you at least require the EMT or National Registry to be a card carrier, I mean, Lord knows I'm old enough, I remember American Red Cross classes. And before you got out of those, you had to circle a ABCDEFG quiz and you got a card. You know what I'm saying? So at least you completed the class and you got certified by their standards. So if they're not at least taking the registry, how do you assure they're competent for the level they're doing, which we're talking about as an EMTR?
Well, first of all, they don't have a license, so I'm not required to ensure that they're competent. Okay,
But don't we want to be competent to take care of the people that we're trying to educate them to respond
The
to?
only thing I can tell you there is when they go through our program, we obviously have a very near and dear desire to make sure that people in our community know how to do the things we want them to do. Now, if you want to help me fund something, this is what I'd love to help fund, is a refresher class for these folks every year or two. That would be nice. That's something we're trying to work on, but we don't have necessarily funding for that.
Okay.
So if you want me to ask you, how do I keep them competent? I don't know. You know, how do you keep a paramedic competent when he gets his CEU hours and you know he's competent? We can run that rabbit way down.
We never end the hole.
I'm gonna end this.
Can I ask one question of data for next time? Because if not, we're not gonna be any further along. Can we take, Katie's gone, but the slide that was up there, the brown one, I think it was,
Which one?
the one before the EMT.
EMTR.
I think it's this, okay. So, and this is not meant to be busy work, okay? So if it's crazy, you just need to say it, all right? Could we not get that? And Richard, listen for a second. I don't know what National Registry considers to be the acceptable class pass ratios. I don't know if that's an established number or not. Is it?
Registry doesn't have it. The accepted industry norms are 70%.
Okay, so could we have that same graph? And if it's above, whatever Richard said, 70 or 75%, it's green. If it's below it, it's red. At least we know where we're hitting the mark.
I don't think that map would do that. I probably have to find something different. That is totally a map by zip code. And the graph only maps by zip codes.
Is there a way to know what classes are green and which classes are red?
You could ask, I know there's two ways that I can see. Either you could specifically tell Richard this class, or you could make it as part of the report from the program that we funded.
If you,
That's
give-
all I'm talking about is the classes we're funding.
if you give us,
But that would be going forward, not backward.
if you give us a list of the course numbers that you want on, I'll give you a report on each one that's got.
So do you have course
Yeah,
numbers for,
I'm making put the course number on the roster.
could we do that for the last 12 months?
I send you the course rosters, what I've got,
I have no clue if that's 20 classes or 100.
We'll build a report for each one.
28, I think.
Okay, is that? I'm making a motion. If nobody wants to second it, we.
Yeah, I'll
do
second it. I think it's good to see.
So is this your whole year's worth of it? I'm sorry, I just want to,
The one that's on the
the one
wall.
that's on the wall.
Oh,
is
no,
this-
no, I've still got, I don't put the numbers in there until the classes come back. And I've just got one starting in Tiff County right now that's gonna end on May 30th.
Because I was
I'm
gonna say
still
to make
building
it more
numbers.
doable, do you want to give her a range of, do you want it for these classes or a quarter's worth of classes or something, or what?
I was just gonna say the last 12 months or last year, whatever's easiest for y'all to do. I don't think you can do it by quarter because I think they'll overlap so much.
Okay.
I can definitely give you everything that we had for the 21 fiscal year. I have all the numbers.
Why don't you do that?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives
I mean,
us a starting
that's-
point. And my intent is not to get rid of a class. My intent is to say, hey, Huey, you're in the red. We need to work with you, whoever, to get you back into the green. You know what I'm saying? But right now, we're just giving them more money, it sounds like in some cases.
Well, then that's.
I got a motion in a second, but folks, I'm really honest with you, I'm not, I ain't clear what the motion is, so if you want to help me restate.
I'll restate it.
To get,
The motion is to take calendar year 2021,
Fiscal year 2021, okay.
okay?
Fiscal
Course,
or calendar?
whichever one works for you. You tell me.
Fiscal, because
Fiscal.
that's the way I've got it.
Okay.
Okay, we're talking about July to
Uh-huh.
June.
Uh-huh.
So fiscal year 21, class-related data and color code them the acceptable standard
70%.
of 70% pass, fail.
On registry.
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay.
Richard, I need your help a little bit. Is that making sense? Is that a benchmarkable thing? Kelly? It's not meant to be busy work. It's just, we're all green or we got green and red.
Any
can send you that.
discussion,
He'll put together what.
any discussion,
And, yeah, and then send it back to me. I
all in
can't do
favor?
it back.
I think they're discussing
I got
now.
a different map.
y'all do this after.
Okay.
All in favor, aye.
Uh,
Any opposition, same sign. All right,
Thank you, Courtney.
you'll get that to them and get back with him.
Okay. All right, the next one is Farm Medic. You can see that we're reaching and we've still got one class a month planned for that. That is a fantastic class, even for urban areas, because teaching people how to get out of PTOs and stuff with up here. I know when I was in DeKalb County, got the Lay's, Pepsi, a lot of different plants, the bakery company that have those same type of mechanisms that people need to get in there and know how to get people out of those things because they're fun. So as you can see, we're reaching a lot with the Farm Medic. This next one is our EMS preparation course. It's the course that they need to get their endorsement to be an instructor. Had 2 classes so far this fiscal year. I bring them to GIPSIG because that's the most central place. And as you can see, we're pulling people from all over the state, and we've got another class planned in 2 or 3 weeks. This is EVOC. We're reaching many, many areas with this. This is EVOC Train the Trainer. So we are training people to go out and deliver the course to providers. I've already been reached out by 2 other regions that are wanting classes. And of course, that's going to be up to the 23 fiscal year money, and that's what I've told them. So I'm getting more calls for wanting that class. Is it the last one? I don't know. Tactical road with EMS focus. We've had our first class for this fiscal year. We've had it last at Hard Labor State Creek in Huey's area. Had a lot of people from different areas coming. We've got another one coming up in Chatsworth. County in a couple of weeks. So we'll have 2 of those this year. This is our TECC map. You can see we're reaching all over the state, delivering TECC to people, and we're doing one a month for each of those. Hey, Farrell, we just had to cancel the one in Columbia County that was fixing to happen because we only had 8 people. We'd love to, we're coming back up in there in November, I believe. Would love to get a lot more participation if you can really pump that out because we need to get up in that area. It's one good thing about the heat map. All right, next one. That is our trauma courses, PHTLS, AMLS, EPC, reaching pretty much all over the state. Again, Farrell, we need to come back to your area some and get some of those classes going. I know we're coming out. Who's got Bryan County? Anybody, Bryan County?
That would be Stephanie as far as Region 9.
Yeah, that's Region 9. That's in my area.
Okay, we've got one class that Kim's going to come out there with her groups and do PHTLS in Bryan County, hopefully between now and May the 30th. So we're trying to push out to that area. Next one. That's it. Good. Okay. So in saying that, we are wide open for the next 6 weeks, teaching classes, the cadaver labs, the ropes, axioms of leadership. Happy to say that we're bringing that back online. I know that most of y'all were informed that Chief Baxter was dealing with some cancer issues. The chemo that he's been getting, he's down to once every 2 weeks, and it's targeted. Which one, Keith? The one in his liver, I think it's targeted the one in his liver. It's really, really shrunk yet. And so he is feeling happy. And we are back with 2 classes between now and the 1st of June for Axioms of Leadership.
Kathy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that, for those particular maps. That's immeasurable. I know that's been a task for you guys to do, but for a visual learner like me and AIDS person, these maps are wonderful, and I really appreciate it.
Kathy, I want to thank you, but I want to make sure this group understands with what this partnership is with the Trauma Commission and this funding and these classes, we are the only state in the nation that's providing this kind of education free to the providers. Out of all 50, we're the only one that's doing this. This is really unbelievable. We've got other states reaching out to Jim, so how do we do this? Wanting information, but this is invaluable for this partnership between everybody, what we provide.
One of the things to take note of, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Kathy, was it TCC number of classes or students taught that we led the nation in last year?
We were second to California in classes taught. So
For TECC or for all?
Yeah, TCC class.
second
Only to California in the nation in teaching.
Congratulations to you guys and kudos. Absolutely.
Thank you. The only other thing I want to mention is with the cadaver labs, most of our instructors there are instructors with the state. So they are able to assist the paramedic classes in getting their intubations. We are running about 2 classes per lab, getting their intubations. So that is phenomenal. Thank you for that, because right now they can't get into the ORs or any place else to get those that they have to have in order to get their paramedic license. Upcoming in Tift and Bacon, I think I've got 4 classes between those 2 that are coming in to get what they need. So thank you for that. That's just some cool stuff we got happening. Any other questions for me? Thank y'all.
So EMS funding, you got FY 22 and FY 22. Those have been adjudicated. We voted on that last call meeting. So those budgets are out. The information on the equipment grant has gone out. So the time frame has started. If you're a 911 service, you need to be getting your grant in.
Can we add something to that list?
Yes, yep, that's what we're fixing to do.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, that's under new business.
Okay.
So if you'll just jump right.
Yep.
We've got several written requests, and I think Lee had a request too. So that's under new business, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
So FY 23 budget, the Trauma Commission has not voted on that. We got a call meeting next Thursday, I believe, to vote on that. At that point in time, we will know how much money the EMS world is getting out of this 23 budget. Now, Liz alluded to it a while ago, but y'all need to understand something really clearly. In the past, we've always had two budgets that we play with. All right, that was the big budget, about $14 million from the state. We had our share of that. And then in January, when they passed the amended budget, then we got that money. And then that amended money had a short time frame to spend it. And so most years we've used that to buy equipment grant stuff and ABLS stuff because it's issued, do a purchase order, get it done. We weren't like we program it, we couldn't get done in that fiscal year. Does that make sense? So this year, because of legislation passed last year, our money goes into the trauma trust fund. In the past, it hadn't done that. So the entire, pretty much 21 million, something in that area will go into that trust fund. So what I'm saying is when we work on this 23 budget, we'll be working on pretty much the entire year. That makes sense? So, and what I propose to do is have a call meeting and spend maybe a day at it in Madison. Because I would really like to get it done before July 21st, I think. Yeah, July 21st is our next full meeting. So what I would like for it to have is be approved before July. So that we could begin. Is that reasonable? We'll send out a doodle poller, that new system that we're using, to try to get as many people there as possible. All right. Now, having said that, I got some frustrations on equipment grant and some other stuff.
Can I ask one question about this before you move to that particular one you were just talking about? Does that, here's my concern. Okay, so you've seen the budget we got for ABLS, and last year we had to start using the procurement system in the state of Georgia. And we're about to go with a fairly sizable budget for the whole year of next year to them. And we've got some bills that are coming due in July for annual maintenance and so on and so forth. So does this have any impact on that administrivia that we had to go through and what we're going to have to go through, especially before we get to price increases and all that sort of thing? So are we still going to have to use that procurement system, which means that we're probably not really going to get anything approved until sometime in the fall or whatever, or will it make it easier since it's in the trust fund? Nope. Okay. Just trying.
It's the
State
rules,
government.
and the rules are in place for a good reason.
So I understand the reason.
Yeah, I know it makes it harder, but it's intended to. Yeah, I know we don't like it.
Harder isn't the issue, it's time that's the issue.
Yeah, they're not in a hurry. They're just not.
We can do our part quickly. It's once it gets in their hands.
So where I'm going with this is we got pretty much one budget. Now, we may have a little bit of amended budget, but it will not be much. Okay, it will not be a whole lot. So as we go forward thinking about this meeting I'm talking about, I'll be thinking through that process. My issue right at the moment, but there's several issues I got with EMS in general. Right after the equipment grant came out, my phone blew up a little bit. Courtney, y'all were just doing 911 ambulance services. I said, yeah, that's what we've always done. Well, so-and-so doesn't have 3,000 ambulances in the county, but you got 3,000 ambulances on the list. That's obviously not the right number. I'll use the right number because you can figure out which county I'm talking about. And I won't do that. But the point is, they don't have that many ambulances dedicated to 911, only a fraction of that number, in all honesty. I called a regional coordinator for that community, and I went back and got the document that either Gabby or Katie sent out. I'm not sure who sent it out, but they said ambulances 911. Well, the regional coordinator said, Courtney, all I can do is go on the license management system, see how many licensed ambulance they have in that county. So we are funding services for general transport ambulances. Yeah, you shake your head. I'm just saying we are, but we don't want to.
Been down this road before. Didn't we address this several years ago?
We talked about it.
We evidently didn't get it fixed. So at this meeting coming up, we're gonna fix it. Now, and the reason I'm saying this, I don't necessarily have a fix. One concept is to do the homework and look at a contract for 911. They got a 911 contract, they say, we have a contract with this for 9 ambulances on peak. Okay, so Emmanuel County's got 5 ambulances, they get all funded. Okay, so 5 ambulances, on peak they run 3. So there's 2 spares. So we can either come up with an algorithm that says if you got 3, you can have 2 spares and come up with that fraction. We can come up with some other fraction. We can come up with a competitive grant so that people say, okay, this is what I do. And this is what I need the money for, and have a committee that sits there and looks at that competitive grant and figures that out towards the grants. We could do it that way. Okay. We could do it another way that I haven't thought of that y'all might. But we can't do what we did again.
No, I agree. But I also think there needs to be something in there. If somebody does that, they need to be held accountable for that.
Well, so the service didn't do it. The service didn't give that number. The regional coordinator gave that number based on what's in the license management system. So, and then if we do it, and look at their 911 zone thing, who's going to do that work and go look at every 911 contract in the state? So, and I'm not trying to solve the problem here today. I specifically don't want to solve it today. I'm not throwing it out for you guys to think about it. So when we come back, we will have some thought process.
And I'll tell you, for those agencies that are in multiple counties, we did look as to how many vehicles are you keeping in this county that you're the 911 provider? Because you do have agencies that are in counties that they're not the 911 provider for. So those vehicles were taken out of their totals.
But they could be the 911 provider, but still have general transport in that same county too, correct?
Just like any 911 provider can.
Correct.
When we were doing it, and I got the numbers from the people, I would contact the regional directors. I would ask them, the specific thing was, how many 911 trucks are you running in your area? Non-trans, I mean, it was very specific. Non-transport is not included, or not, non-emergency is not included. So I'm gonna go back to when I was at DeKalb. At DeKalb, we had 15 trucks at that particular time that I was on a truck running DeKalb County. Now, we probably had 10 spares sitting somewhere, but only the 15 counted. That was it. The 10 spares was because you offloaded all that stuff from the truck if you had to get it to the reserve. So,
Well, and some of them now, I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to have stock trucks that are ready to roll outside of the NARCs and stuff like that. Yeah,
But they're
instead of
not-
Trying to.
But those aren't your peak trucks.
yeah, those are.
I specifically don't want to solve the problem with that. Okay.
Don't worry.
I didn't bring my boots. I'm not getting in the weeds. There's gonna be snakes in these weeds, gang. I can bite us. So I want you to think about it. And at the next meeting, I won't bring Snicker bars. Are you pulling us in the weeds?
No, I just have a question, because it's just that it's not my realm and I'm not quite, so they're licensed ambulances to provide 911 services, but they're used for something else? Is that what that's what I'm
There's
just.
no-
not-
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing as a licensed 911. There's only a licensed ambulance.
Okay,
They're all the same license. That makes.
Some services are
I guess I'm not
designated.
understanding then, yeah,
Some services are designated or contracted 911 providers.
right.
And then some services are not. So that's who's included in the grant versus who's not.
That I
But
got. I was
then-
wondering how from the regional coordinators you were getting how to the list of 911 trucks that are not 911 trucks.
If it's a zone provider
Uh-huh.
and they've got X number of ambulances based in that county, and let's just say 12 of them do 911.
Uh-huh.
And another 14 of them do dialysis, hospital and nursing home, then all of those ambulances were counted because they're in that county.
Okay, thank you.
So anyway, again, not trying to solve it today, just doing. So we got another problem that I want to at least address at the next meeting. And this one does have some stakes. So I was at a meeting earlier this week. And I've had several conversations with different people because people somehow get my phone number.
Give it out.
We don't know the number of times that somebody sits in a rural ER waiting on an ambulance to transport them to a tertiary center. Okay. We don't know how many times somebody sits in a rural ER with critical trauma because the local ambulance service says, we're not going to do it. We don't know how many times we have a patient who's critical with a STEMI and the local ambulance service says, we're not going to do it because our rule says we have to have one ambulance in the county available at all times. Folks, that's the problem.
That's a huge problem. That is a 911 call. That's an acute
It's a known 911.
911 call. I don't care if they're in a hospital. They can't provide the care. That's no different than that patient.
All you care about is money. That's what you're gonna hear. I hear it all the time. We move those patients. So to me, a known 911 patient takes precedence over a possible.
Absolutely it does.
I don't know how you resolve
But you
that.
got a lot of counties that don't do it that way.
That's right.
I got a lot of counties who don't do it that way. You've got a lot of county governments who sign contracts with ambulance companies with that in the contract, that they have to have X number of ambulances in the county. The reason they have done that is because services have taken their county ambulances that the county commissioners think they're funding and take them across to another county to run a non-emergency run. Okay, so to see to it that that doesn't happen, the commissioners say you got to have a ambulance in the county. So now that contractor says, nope, I don't care. He just has to bleed to death in your ER. Or it's hard.
If it's his family that have a different outlook on
It's his
that.
child.
Absolutely right. I'm sorry, that's ridiculous.
I want us to talk about it. I'm trying to get up a meeting with Dave Wills, and I'll talk a little bit about this with the March calls. But those two things are my big issue on the next agenda.
And the only way to address that would be the state promulgate rules that says something that acute like that, you have to, and that is no
There's
different.
no
than a
way as a
911
group
call.
we can enforce anything.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say one other thing, then I'm gonna move on. And Lee and I were on a committee looking at zoning 2 years ago,
No, it's longer than that.
some years back. On my way to the meeting in Coweta County, I thought we need for the zoning laws rules to say the 911 provider is responsible for those calls. On my way home, I thought about Bullitt County. So Bullitt County is a county government ambulance service. Private for-profit hospital, that's a good profit. So it is a referral center for about 7 counties. So everybody takes their patients there. A lot of them have money, a lot of them don't. So is it Doug Vickers' responsibility and the Bullitt County Commissioners to take all of those emergent transfers from there to Savannah or wherever? Y'all answer me that question at the next meeting, because I'll be here to find out. I don't. Okay. So wasn't that fun? Learning management system update. I don't have an update. We haven't had any movement on that to my knowledge. March Paul's Rural Trauma Initiative, we have had some good discussions about that. We now have at least a draft PowerPoint. We have a draft curriculum earlier this week about that. And for those of you who are not familiar, March Pauls is the military acronym for the initial care of a trauma patient. And I know that I may have heard this story before. Somebody pushes a patient by me, doesn't say, hey, doesn't say, kiss my butt, doesn't say anything. I talked to the ER manager about a stroke. She said, yeah. So they pushed by me directly to the CT scan. Okay. So they called in a stroke alert. The CT scanner was cleared. They've got the patient on CT scanner. I'm still talking. A few minutes later, they come back. They've got the blood tubes drawn. The nurse had already gotten the patient's information. They stuck the tubes, put the labels on the tube. The nurse left and took the tubes to the lab. They brought the patient back, put her in the room. The AU screen was up. The neurologist was there. They did the consult. And about 20 minutes later, the patient was on the way to AU. Nobody raised hell. Nobody looked at my medic and said, why'd you bring them here? That's a stroke. Nobody got upset. There was very little conversation because they had a plan. They knew what they're doing. I don't understand why they can't do that for trauma. Which one of y'all have not heard at least a rural person say, hey, we took them to a rural hospital. They said, what the hell are you doing here? That's trauma. Don't belong here. Get them the hell out of here. Bring them here. And that's pretty common because trauma scares them. Okay. And if you look at the CDC guidelines, that's what it says to do. My other story, 18-year-old kid, his daddy's 38, bam, in Emmanuel County. My medic picks him up, brings him to our hospital. I'm pissed. So I'm on my way over to the ER to dress him down. And fortunately, I calmed down enough. I said, why did you bring him here? Okay, my protocol said take him to AU. CDC says take him to AU. It made more sense than I ever had. He said, Courtney, he's got a lung full of blood. I listened to it, it's full of blood. And I knew if I took him to AU, by the time I got him there, the other one would be full of blood and he'd be in his head. They put a chest tube in his head. He's doing something today. He did fine. And if my medic had done, it would have been death by Courtney protocols. So we've got to figure out, and the American College and CDC have changed the protocols. So it allows for that. We've got to get the rural centers and rural EMSs, and even some of the urban centers that don't do trauma regularly, to understand how to put in a chest tube, how to control an airway, and how to start unpiped, uncrossed. We hope to do that with the March Pole Zone. The goal is to develop the class. We'll call it in Emmanuel County. We got a grant. We're going to do one in Cordele because Dr. Register is very involved. She's a trauma surgeon down there. We'll do one in Thomas because Dr. Patterson is involved in that. So we're working on that, and as we finish this up. The other thing that I recognized yesterday on the conference call, the TCAA, Trauma
Center Association of America.
The Trauma Commission is paying for us to have consults. That a lot of the rural centers are don't have the protocol in place to charge for trauma activations. So that's another little positive externality, I think. More to come on that. Hopefully, we've got money to do the pilots. We're trying to develop some pre-course stuff that can be done. The goal is to get as much of it online as we can, because a lot of these folks have trouble, physicians in particular, have trouble getting there and giving up their time. But then the practical skill set done in the rural centers. We hope to do a train-the-trainer course so that we have local champions to keep it sustained. Questions? EMS equipment grant request. I know there's at least a couple that, Jed, you had one.
I do. I think the group knows Region 2, back right before COVID started, got approval to do the blood projects in the field. Started with plasma. 3 of the 4 counties still using plasma. Jackson County has been using whole blood now for 3 months.
Longer than that.
But that has finally been approved by MSDAC. I know the state office is working on the post-licensure skills for that. So I'd like to add that on the equipment grant that for counties that see a need for this, and it has, that we did about 70 cases, had no negative outcomes, and had some really successful saves with it, that the patient would have died had not had the blood in the field. But to add the cooling devices, whatever they choose, we went with the Pelican, that was a good one, and also the temperature monitoring devices for those blood products to add to the equipment grant. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? Those 2 things? Everything else is, and the administration set. Yes, I'm sorry.
So administration sets and cooling devices.
And the temperature monitoring devices.
All right. Do I have a second?
Wait, can we just go through there's another thing that probably needs to be added to your motion that Katie has in here because it's going to be about the timeframes. Can we just go through this real quick?
I was just gonna do one at a time.
Can we not just batch them all?
If you want to be
She's got it.
organized, I guess you could. It's never been my problem.
I'm trying to keep you organized. It's really.
Okay, Katie.
All right. The first one is the license in service and ambulance cutoff dates. Prior to the equipment grant process, we reached out to the regional directors to verify counts, which we just went through all that. Then we also verify with OEMS&T. Then any variances we bring to OEMS&T to determine the cause of the variance. The main cause of the variance are due to in-service dates of the ambulances. They occur from the time that we put the equipment grant or we send out for the request for the count and put the grant in place. That variance occurs because they have added ambulances in between that time. So what I am suggesting is that we have a deadline for the in-service. Under this 911 service ambulance term might change once we have the next meeting and determine which ambulances we are going to count. But I would like to suggest that we have a cutoff date of January 1st of the calendar grant year. For the first grant process, this is if we have an AFY ever. But for the first one, for July through December, it'd be January 1st of the calendar year. And then if we have any AFY grant process, it'd be July 1st of the prior calendar year.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, why can't it just be the day that you get the data from the state?
I think it's probably.
Whichever is, I mean, it doesn't.
They probably catch flags.
I think it ought to be.
That's probably what happened.
Because like we put out we send it to OEMS.
It's always a
and that's how
moving
we have.
target, no matter what you
Yeah.
choose, it's always a moving target.
But I think if you have a date, the services have less to complain or.
It's like in 2 weeks, we're adding an ambulance.
Yeah.
But
Is what
so, okay, well, then that'll go on next year.
Okay.
But, I mean,
It's up to you
I don't have
guys.
a preference.
So since Lee said it was a good idea, I'm gonna take that as. Since Huey was okay with it. I'm gonna take
Twice
it
I've
as
gotten
second.
acknowledged by people.
Any other discussion?
So
I have a
January,
question on those cutoff dates.
Okay,
So if the FY grant process is July to December, you're going to go all the way back to January 1 of that year
Yes.
for their date, why not July 1?
say, so I said, it's gonna be a moving target, no matter what you pick, it's gonna be.
I mean, that's, you're going back 6 months before the grant process even starts. If
Yes,
that's the way I'm reading that.
Technically, it's a reimbursement grant.
Right.
So if we're getting ambulances that just came on in July, then it's not really reimbursing those ambulances that just came on, because then that means it's not a reimbursement at that point. I could see your point though. If we go back 6 months, then you're gonna miss out on
Yeah.
those dollars goes
Because if
in.
a service adds an ambulance in May, April, or whatever, because they needed to expand their service, we're not capturing that there.
So Katie said that would not be a big issue to change that to July 1.
And then if it's an AFY being January 1.
January 1, just change those 2 dates around. That'll
So
work.
basically you got 2 deadlines, January, and July.
July. Yeah.
Are y'all okay with the change?
Yes,
You're gonna have,
it's always gonna be.
somebody's not gonna be happy with no matter what you pick, so.
Yeah, but I think that gets a lot closer to what their real number is gonna be at the point where they actually apply for it.
That works.
So we've got amended motion now to have a cutoff date for the FY at July 1 and the AFY at January 1. Does that address your concerns?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? All in favor, be aye. Any opposition, same sign? Motion carried.
For the equipment grant special requests, we have a few. We have a few that are asking for iPads to replace the laptops and the tough books.
So what I would like to do is ask somebody to make a motion that if they're asking for iPads or any tablet type device that they're actually going to use in their service for their data collection or managing their service, that be okay.
Yeah, would you add the part also
Would
the
you read all that?
telemedicine?
It's just that.
Yes.
Who's online?
Oh, yeah, it's over there. I think it's here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just disconnect all of them there.
They don't need to be part of this.
Just saying.
Chad, is yours in there?
No, I think he just brought.
No,
it.
I just brought it up. I have not submitted those, sir, it's not.
So does anybody want to make a motion to approve all that?
I got, for Rayburn County wanting image trend software, provide timely automatic transfer of PCR information. What?
They get that for free.
I know, that's why I'm asking what they're wanting there. I don't understand.
Is there anything on there? Chris?
It says image trend KNO 2 software.
No, we're, we use that at Habersham. I remember.
So is
we
that
called
when you
it.
have to purchase an upgrade or something?
It says
That's
cost
where
is-
it's automatically, as soon as you get 99% validation and close out, it sends it to the hospital through direct messaging or fax, whatever you want to do. We've been using that about 2 or 3. I know David was looking at that at state office at one time. We tried to purchase that for the entire state. I don't know where those conversations.
I would think that would be good. The hospitals get the record quick.
It goes immediately and the hospital can choose whether to manually add it to the patient record, or they can have it go directly to that patient's most recent medical record where you took them in, just depending on what they want to do. It's a very valuable, so that makes sense. But it should be equipment request to purchase No2 software instead of image trend. It is not image trend software.
So
KNO-2 is the,
my only concern is once we start getting into software, that's endless.
no, I mean, you got a point.
I mean, it's. And
You know if David's still looking at that, Kelly, by any chance?
No, I don't.
Okay, he was looking at that, trying to purchase it for everybody in the state at one time. I know we met with Dane Mueller, who is one of the owners of that company, but I don't know where those conversations went. The other thing that software gives you the ability to do, if anybody's been in you go out on the interstate down your way on 16 to pick up John Doe, he's unconscious. If you can get a DOB or a name, you can put in any major medical, Epic, anything like that. If they're in those databases, you can pull that patient's patient information to get, patient history, if they're allergic to any medications, anything like that. So it gives you that ability to do that. But you're right, you can get very.
What have we said before about equipment that the state already requires on an ambulance as a condition of licensure?
If it's on the equipment list, it's it's approved already. And the theory was, I think when we made that decision was that if the equipment list changed at some point in the future, it would automatically be included, or if something was removed, it would be removed.
IV warmers have been on there since almost day one, haven't they?
It's not a required item for the,
No, for the state.
I think the warmers have been,
IV warmers were on our list.
On our list,
Yeah,
yes, we've had that on our list, yes.
Okay, so just add it.
Because our service bought them with trauma money.
I think it was fine, it's just fluid.
Which I don't know if they're talking about, and it doesn't matter, quite frankly. I'll be a requirement. I mean, look at this myself, but that's-
Why is Burke County EMA, they don't have a lot, or is their license under the EMA there?
No, the EMA, they run the 911.
Okay, okay.
All right, I'm looking for some kind of a motion. So if somebody doesn't make a motion, then we will go down one by one.
I'm not gonna make a motion on both things.
I got a little issue with thermal imaging cameras.
All right, let me do this. Let's see if I can get this motion. The iPads and tablets, there are 3 of them that I see. Does that sound correct?
Mhm.
Could I get a motion to approve those?
Make a motion to approve those.
I'll second that.
We have a motion in a second to approve the iPads, iPad tablets, and the iPad.
And is that okay to go ahead and add this to the approved list from here on out? Okay.
IV warmers can come out, that's already been approved years ago.
Hey, hang on a second, I'm looking at the list, it's not on there. That may be an omission.
What's that?
I'm looking at the
Warmers is
the
not
equipment
approved.
list that we added to and it's not on there. So we may have intended to it, but it never
I
made it
bought
on
them
the
in
list.
Haversham 3 or 4 years ago.
So
But it was on.
if we got a motion on the table for the iPads, all in favor be aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same sign.
Aye.
Now let's get down to since the warmers came up, the IV warmers. Do I have a motion for the?
I'll make a
IV?
motion for it.
I'll second.
Motion second for the IV warmer. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
The opposition, same sign. Okay, so we'll go to the image trend software, which is not image trend software, is it?
KNO.
KNO. KNO software for Raymond County. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I know how beneficial it is. I
I
mean,
have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second.
I have a second. Any discussion?
I'd like to ask a question.
Okay.
It'll be specific. IV warmers, we could care less what brand you buy. But since we're saying this is specific for that software, correct?
That's the way I read it, yeah.
So I'll
So to
put
Huey's
image
point, we
trend.
may open the door to everything else.
Because I don't
But it's
use
just-
image trend, but if I have a software I want, does that mean now I can apply?
well,
it?
this would work. They make an interface for any
No,
of
I
your.
understand, but
I
I'm just
understand his
saying,
point.
we opened this Pandora box of now we're approving software and maybe somebody doesn't want image trend, they want another one.
So
Are we?
But we'd have to vote on that
this is
individually.
This
I
is.
think we're voting on this specifically because it will allow for data transfer. This helps with some of the data initiatives that Liz has been talking about in ensuring that data is transferred over from the ambulance to the hospital.
Any other discussion? All
I have
in
a
favor?
question. Courtney.
Okay,
That information doesn't automatically go to Hospital Hub anyhow?
It does, it has to be manually pulled off. And the hospital has to have a designated person to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a little, there you go.
all in favor would be aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, was anybody voted against it except Huey? Okay, all right, I understand Huey, I'm not calling you out, I don't,
No, good,
so,
right?
so the motion carries. So we got 2 more, I think. I think the next one will be the Minotaur 4 pagers for Turner County. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. I mean, I guess they need that, and that's part of their response. I don't really.
This is no different than a radio that we've approved. in the
Right,
past.
exactly.
How many times I've been made fun of because I said I wish we had pagers again, and here we are approving them.
Have we approved communications equipment before? for this?
Yes.
I will tell you, rural Georgia radio transmission. I have a motion and a second, for the Motorola Minotaur 6 pager. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, same sign? Being no opposition, motion passes. Next will be thermal imaging cameras for Burke County EMA. Do I have a motion?
And they've got the ambulance license, right? That's what y'all clarified.
911 provider, that's correct. They run the fire department, the EMA. run it all. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I mean, we have used that
If they
before
got the
that.
fire department, they get that from the firefighter assistant grant, right?
That hard to find somebody that fell out of a tree, aren't they?
The tree, I agree
Just
with
checking
you,
on that.
but I have been on record, we have used it to find people that's been ejected. It does work.
If I fall out of a tree,
We have done that also.
Yes.
I have a
The tree,
motion.
I've got your same concern. I mean,
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
just read what they wrote.
I just wrote down what they read.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second for the purpose of discussion.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion.
My question is do they specify where those units are going?
and if they, like Huey said, if they have, does the fire department first respond with them? If they do, most engines now have a tick on them, so they should have access to that.
So that was my question. Are they specifically getting it for their ambulances, or are they using this to supplant fire equipment?
Does it say anything on it?
No, it just says in the event that we need to locate a trauma patient who has been ejected from a motor vehicle, fell from a tree stand while hunting, or other incident requiring us to locate them in rough terrain, thermal imaging will greatly speed up the process.
Hey, here's another clue. Look for the tree stand, then look under that tree.
Because there are, and I'll go back to Bullitt County for, I did not realize this to talk to them, but their fire department does not first respond with them on wrecks or anything unless they are requested.
Burke County's all integrated. I mean, they have 12 fire stations, they have 12 ambulances.
And I would like to know if they've got thermal images on their engines, and if they do, and those engines respond with them on a wreck, why have one on an ambulance if you're gonna have one on the engine there?
I think that's a legitimate question. I don't have the answer to it.
You're supposed to have all the answers.
Most of them are wrong. You have to call
Do you want to, we could send back the committee requests a formal response on, does that capability exist within their first responding?
Do they have those, does the fire department or that side of the coin have those on their apparatus? And if they do, how many do they have?
Okay, here, I'm gonna go a little further than that. We approve it. It's not a spot approval. So now every ambulance service in the state of Georgia can buy thermal imaging cameras because it goes on the list. So that's essentially what we're approving things for. So unless you're gonna do a spot approval, everything usually is gone on the list for future approval automatically.
I think it needs to go back and see what they've got.
Well, Burke County has,
The question is their engines, are their engines medical first responders?
Kelly's looking right now.
I don't think they have a license for that, but like I say, they're all in the same bays, they're all together. It's one organization.
We're one organization, but we have a medical first responder license for the engines, separate from our transport license.
I would also entertain a move to table this.
They have licensed first responder vehicles.
They have license first responder.
I'll make a motion to table till we get more information.
Second,
I'll second that.
all right, motion to table does take precedence, thank Lord. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? So what we need to do then is reach back out to Burke County and essentially ask them.
What do you want me to ask
I
them
see.
specifically?
The question I would ask them is, you have thermal imaging cameras on your fire trucks.
Okay.
And if they have thermal imaging cameras on their fire trucks, and they're searching for somebody, then they're going to call out their crews to do that. I mean, that's-
Could you say fire trucks or any other response vehicles in the county?
Yeah, because what's gonna end up happening is.
No, it's on the chief's truck.
Yeah, I-
These on their fire equipment.
Burke
Or
County's
anybody
fairly well
else.
funded. So, Metro Atlanta ambulance service driving simulator. I do have somebody here to speak to that. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a second. I was going to say, I actually think this is a great idea, even if it was leased.
Well, that's 3 today. I need to leave.
You have more meetings up here. Lee.
Absolutely. It's the Innovation Center. People are opening new ideas.
We're innovating.
That's right.
Look here.
I'm gonna fall out of a tree stand. Nobody's gonna find me this afternoon.
I am very interested in seeing how this works, because personally, I think that's not the fun process.
You also have to approve Chad's request. It's not on there.
Okay, yeah, we need to get that one too. So any discussion on that? So all in favor?
Have we done something like this in the past?
We spent a lot of time and effort trying to develop something like this in the past. Never got any horsepower because at that point, the systems were so very expensive. But the systems have become much more affordable. And so I'm really interested in this because we have a huge problem training. I mean, let's face it, you put people out in ambulances with red lights and sirens with little experience in driving those vehicles.
He did.
Thank you.
Yeah, what?
Nothing. You'll take back one of my compliments.
All right, all in favor, aye. Any opposition, same sign?
I'm gonna abstain.
Chad, you had something, I think. That's all of those, isn't it?
Yes. And then the Chad's cooling devices, administration set and temperature monitor.
So Chad brought up the blood cooling device, the tubing.
Warming tubing and the temperature monitoring device.
devices.
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Could we get a follow-up on that blood at some future meeting? Just a,
Yeah,
Okay.
well, right now, Jesse and him's working with a training for the state, with the state office, how to put out the training, what we went through. There's online, there's hands-on. And then we will, what we'll do is I'll come to the next meeting and help and bring them, we'll present. You know, our suggestion and what we did with the pilot was to work with your local hospital blood bank, whether you get the plasma, what we've been doing is 14 days.
Yes.
We go back, take, if we've not utilized it, we take it back, they repurpose it in the hospital. So really, you pay for your initial 2 bags of plasma. And what we would do in Northeast Georgia is when we would hang it, we couldn't bill for that, of course, we're all inclusive, but because it was theirs, they would bill for it in the ER and give us a bag back free. I mean, there was no cost for that. Plasma is about $50 a unit. The whole blood, I think, is $500 a unit. I don't know that they can repurpose the whole blood. But Jackson County was used enough to where they were not having that issue. And that's going to be part of the process with the state is determining what agencies have enough call volume to utilize whole blood versus what needs to use the plasma. So, but we will have a report for that.
That's what we're going to say about the blood because I'll go back a little bit to my comment about the equipment grant. Kelly, there may be more now, but last time I checked, there were like 21 services in the state of Georgia. With licensure skill training for the blood administration. And we had additional blood. Okay. I mean, that's a life-saving protocol. Every particular, the rural services need that. So that will be part of the March policy thing, by the way. I'm gonna have a hard time voting to give anybody a grant or equipment if they don't have that done. Maybe less open enrollment. So what we're having is services changing vendors at will. And it's driving Katie crazy, trying to figure out the budget because the different vendors have a little bit different pricing. So when she puts money in, she has to encumber it to a specific vendor. And when somebody swaps, then it makes that number go squirrely. So to alleviate that, what I am suggesting is that we have an open enrollment date. And I'm thinking January and February. So that if you want to change vendors, we'll tell you in January and February that you have the opportunity to change vendors. And you can change vendors because we don't care. We don't own stock in any of them. And after the end of February, if you want to change vendors, you have two choices. You can change vendors and pay for that on your dime, or you can wait till next January and change vendors on our dime. That makes sense. So, I don't know that we need a motion for that. I think that's just a procedure that we're going to adopt as part of the ABLS process. But we will ask you to go forward until we will send out something, obviously, but we want you to help us get the word out to the services in your regions. That this is the way we're going to do this. So, that reasonable? What was just passed around, I was at EMAG last week and met an old friend by the name of Keith Wages. He had retired and gone to the farm, and he's been resurrected, recycled. He was working with Dr. Eisnikoff, Schwartz, and some others on a particular project. They have a conference call today at 2 o'clock. I can send you the information if you want to get involved with that. But this is just a document explaining to that what they're doing. He had hoped to come today, but that other, they're evidently under some deadline about getting some grant information back to the grantor. And so he's there doing that today. Feel free to reach back out to Keith and ask him questions. I think he would love to talk about it. He's pretty pumped about it. This thing will give you at least a brief overview of what they're doing.
Hey, Courtney, do you know any more details of what's on the page?
I do.
Specifically, select initiative, including the first one. You know anything about that?
The one that I know more about, that he and I talked more about, was the telehealth. The concept of doing that, and that obviously has been a very hot topic. A lot of folks that telehealth, different manners and modules, and Dr. Schwartz from AU's involved with this. I think it's a HRSA grant or HHS grant, but I'm not really sure. But give him a call. He'd love to talk to you about it. And I may try to get him to the next meeting just to explain what it is. He said he'd love to come to Madison. That's right down the road.
2 o'clock. I thought it was 1 o'clock today.
I think it's 2.
But there are a lot of people want to coordinate where patients going now.
There is that. Okay. Anything else that we need? Although, I tried hard, we didn't get finished at 12:01. Feel fairly good about that. I heard anybody's feelings beside Lee's, I'm sorry, but he and I tease each other unmercifully anyway, so normal day he gets me is at least as good as I get. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.